everyone. Find a cozy spot, take a breath, and let's begin. Picture a forest where the trees are tall and quiet, and the air is cool and still. A young man sits alone under an apple tree. He is not doing anything special. He is just thinking. But in that one quiet moment, something changes. Not just for him, for all of us, for the entire world. This is the story of Isaac Newton, a man who looked at a falling apple and asked a question that no one had asked before. A man who spent his life listening to the universe, and the universe answered him. Before we begin, if this is your first time here at Storyline English, welcome. This channel is a place where you can learn English through calm, beautiful stories. Real stories, true stories, stories that stay with you. So take a comfortable breath and let the journey begin. The year was 1642. The place was a small village called Woolsthorpe in the English countryside. The world at that time was very different from the world we know today. There were no computers, no electric lights, no cars. People worked on farms. They looked at the sky and wondered. They asked questions, but they did not always have answers. Into this world, on a cold winter day, a baby boy was born. His name was Isaac Newton. But Isaac did not arrive in the world in a strong or healthy way. He was very small. So small, in fact, that the people around him were not sure he would survive. His mother later said that he was tiny enough to fit inside a large cup. He came into the world quietly, gently, like a whisper. And yet, this small, quiet baby would one day change the way every human being understood the universe. There is something beautiful about that. The greatest minds often begin in the most unexpected ways. Isaac's father had already died before Isaac was born. So from his very first day, life was not easy for this small child. But even then, even in those first hard moments, something in him was already waiting. Something in him was already listening. And the question is, what was it that he heard? Isaac Newton grew up in a quiet home with his grandmother. When he was 3 years old, his mother left to marry another man. She moved away, and Isaac stayed behind. He was a young child, and suddenly he was without his mother. This was a painful thing. It left a mark on him for many years. Isaac grew up feeling lonely. He did not have many friends. He was not the kind of boy who played loudly or laughed in big groups. He was quiet. He liked to be alone. He liked to think. While other children ran and shouted outside, Isaac sat in corners and made small things with his hands. He built little models of windmills. He made paper kites. He studied how water moved and how shadows fell. He was always watching, always wondering. When he went to school, he was not always the best student. In fact, for a while, his teachers did not notice anything special about him. He was quiet in class. He kept to himself. But inside his mind, something extraordinary was growing. He asked questions that other people did not think to ask. He looked at ordinary things and saw something deeper inside them. And perhaps the most interesting thing about young Isaac is this. quiet curiosity, that gentle, patient wonder, would one day become the most powerful tool the world had ever seen. When Isaac Newton was a young man, he went to study at Cambridge University in England. Cambridge was one of the most important places for learning in the world at that time, and Isaac arrived there as a quiet, serious student, ready to listen and to learn. At Cambridge, Isaac discovered a world that felt made for him. A world of mathematics, of astronomy, of natural philosophy, which is what science was called in those days. He read books by great thinkers like Galileo and Descartes. He studied the stars and the movement of planets. He sat for long hours in his small room, filling pages with numbers and ideas. For the first time in his life, Isaac felt like he belonged somewhere. But then, something unexpected happened. A terrible illness, known as the Great Plague, began to spread across England. Cambridge University was forced to close. Students and teachers had to leave the city and go home to stay safe. For most students, this felt like a terrible interruption, a pause in their education, a door suddenly closed. But for Isaac Newton, this moment became something else entirely. He went home to Woolsthorpe, to the quiet countryside where he had grown up. And there, far from the city, far from his professors and books, something remarkable began to unfold. In that stillness, in that small and simple place, Isaac began to think more deeply than he had ever thought before. And the questions he asked during those quiet months would change the course of human history forever. Isaac Newton spent almost 2 years at his home in Woolsthorpe while the plague kept the university closed. These 2 years, from 1665 to 1667, are now known as some of the most extraordinary years in the history of science. Isaac was alone. He had no professors to guide him, no classmates to discuss ideas with. He had only his own mind and the world around him. And in that deep, patient solitude, he made discoveries that no human being had ever made before. He began to study light. He used a simple glass prism and discovered that white light is not just one color. It is made of many colors together: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and violet. When light passes through a prism, it spreads apart and shows its hidden colors. This discovery surprised the world of science, but Isaac did not stop there. He also began working on a new kind of mathematics, a method for understanding how things change and move. He called it the method of fluxions. Today, we call it calculus. It became one of the most important tools in all of mathematics. And then, perhaps most famously, Isaac turned his attention to the sky. He watched how objects moved. He thought about the moon, about the planets, about why things fall to the ground. Slowly, carefully, patiently, he began to put together an idea so large, so clear, and so true that it had been waiting for centuries for someone brave enough to find it. And that idea had a name. It was called gravity. There is a story that almost everyone in the world has heard. It is the story of Isaac Newton and the apple. One afternoon, Isaac was sitting in the garden near his home in Woolsthorpe. The air was still. The trees trees were calm. And then, from a branch above him, an apple fell. It fell down, as all apples do, straight toward the ground. Most people in the world had seen apples fall. Most people had never thought deeply about it. But Isaac was not most people. He looked at that falling apple and asked a question. Why did it fall down and not up? Why not sideways? Why always toward the earth? He knew the answer was not simple. Something was pulling the apple. Something invisible. Something powerful. And if something was pulling the apple toward the earth, then maybe, just maybe, that same force was also pulling the moon, pulling the planets, holding everything in the universe together in its place. This was the beginning of his theory of gravity, the idea that every object in the universe pulls on every other object, that the same force that brings an apple to the ground also keeps the moon moving around the earth, and the earth moving around the sun. It was a beautiful idea, simple and enormous at the same time. Isaac spent many more years writing, calculating, and proving this idea. And when he finally shared it with the world was never the same again. But perhaps what is most important about this moment is not the discovery itself. It is the fact that Isaac was paying attention. He was listening to a simple apple, to a quiet afternoon, to the soft voice of the universe. When the plague ended, Isaac returned to Cambridge University. He was a changed man. Those quiet months at home had given him a depth of thinking that few people in the world could match. He returned not as a simple student, but as a thinker, already full of revolutionary ideas. He became a professor at Cambridge at only 26 years old. This was a rare and extraordinary achievement. As a professor, Isaac continued his work. He built the first reflecting telescope, a new kind of telescope that used mirrors instead of glass lenses to see the stars. This was another important step forward in science. Astronomers across Europe were amazed. His reputation began to grow. Scientists and mathematicians from many countries wanted to know more about this quiet, serious man from England. But Isaac was still not ready to share all of his ideas with the world. He was cautious. He liked to think slowly and carefully. He did not want to publish his discoveries until he was absolutely certain. For many years, he kept his greatest work to himself, filling notebooks, making calculations, refining every detail. And then, in 1687, after years of quiet preparation, he finally published a book. A book that would become one of the most important books ever written in the history of human knowledge. It was called Philosophiae Naturalis Principia Mathematica, or, as it is often simply called, the Principia. Inside that book were the laws of motion and the theory of universal gravitation. Simple, clear, and true. And the world of science was changed forever. The Principia was not an easy book to read. It was written in Latin and filled with complex mathematics. But the ideas inside it were clear and powerful. Isaac Newton Newton described 3 laws of motion that explained how all objects move. The first law said that an object stays still or keeps moving in a straight line unless something pushes or pulls it. The second law described how force, mass, and movement are connected. The third law said that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. These 3 laws, together with the theory of gravity, explained something extraordinary. They explained almost everything that moves in the physical world. The motion of planets, the rise and fall of ocean tides, the path of a thrown stone, the orbit of the moon. For the first time in human history, the universe was not a mystery. It was a system, a beautiful, ordered, mathematical system. And one man, thinking quietly in a small room, had described it. Scientists across Europe read the Principia with amazement. Some said it was the greatest achievement of the human mind. Isaac Newton had done something that seemed impossible. He had looked at the world, asked the right questions, thought deeply and patiently, and found the hidden rules that the universe follows every single day. And the lesson in this moment is simple and important. The universe does not hide its secrets from those who are not curious. It hides them from those who never stop to look. Isaac Newton always stopped to look, and that made all the difference. Isaac Newton was one of the greatest minds the world has ever known. But he was also a human being, and, like all human beings, he was complicated. He was not always a warm or easy person to know. He had few close friends in his life. He was serious, private, and sometimes stubborn. He did not enjoy arguments, but when his ideas were challenged, he could become very defensive. There was a long and painful disagreement between Newton and another great mathematician named Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz. Both men had independently developed the same ideas about calculus. But instead of celebrating this parallel discovery, they argued about who had done it first. The argument lasted for years, and it caused great unhappiness for both of them. In later life, Newton also spent a great deal of time studying alchemy, the ancient attempt to transform metals into gold, and theology, the study of religion and the nature of God. These are not the parts of his life that most history books discuss, but they remind us that even the greatest minds are searching for something more than facts and formulas. Newton was also searching for meaning. He was searching for the hidden order behind all things. And perhaps this is what connected all of his work: the science, the mathematics, the theology, the alchemy. He believed, deeply and sincerely, that the universe had been designed with perfect intelligence, and he wanted to understand that intelligence, one question at a time. In his later years, Isaac Newton left Cambridge and moved to London. He became an important public figure. He was made a master of the Royal Mint, the place where England's coins were made. He worked hard in this role and helped to fight against counterfeit money. He also became the president of the Royal Society, one of the most respected scientific organizations in the world. He held this position for 24 years. In 1705, Queen Anne gave him the title of Sir Isaac Newton. He was officially recognized as one of the greatest men in England. But even in these public years, Isaac remained at heart the same quiet, thoughtful man he had always been. He continued reading, writing, and thinking until the very end of his life. He never married. He had no children. His life was his work, and his work was his gift to the world. Isaac Newton died in 1727. He was 84 years old. He died peacefully in his sleep. When the people of England heard the news, they mourned deeply. He was buried in Westminster Abbey, the most honored place of burial in England. At his tomb, people came to pay their respects to a man who had changed the way every human being understood the world they lived in. His work did not end with his life. It continued in every science textbook, every telescope, every satellite launched into space, every calculation made by engineers and astronomers across the centuries. His quiet questions are still echoing today. There is a famous sentence that Isaac Newton once wrote in a letter. He said, "If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." This is a beautiful and humble thing to say. He knew that his discoveries were built on the work of others, on Galileo, on Kepler, on Descartes, on all the thinkers who came before him. He did not see himself as the beginning of knowledge. He saw himself as part of a long and continuing journey. And that is the most important lesson from the life of Isaac Newton. Knowledge is a journey. Discovery is a journey. Learning is a journey. And every journey begins with one small, quiet, courageous act. The decision to pay attention. To look at the world around you and ask, why? Isaac Newton looked at an apple falling from a tree. He asked, why? And that one question led him to understand gravity, motion, light, and the hidden structure of the entire universe. You are on your own journey right now. Every time you listen to a story in English, every time you hear a new word and feel it begin to make sense, you are standing on the shoulders of giants too. You are building something, slowly, quietly, and beautifully. So keep going, keep listening, keep learning. This is Storyline English, and this is a place made for you. If today's story about Isaac Newton moved you or taught you something new, please leave a comment below. Tell us which moment stayed with you. And if you want to continue this journey, our next story